Town board meetings, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
John Baisley, First Ward.
Bill Carlos, Second Ward.
Joe Conti, Third Ward.
Michael Safone, Fourth Ward.
Stefan Krakauer, Fifth Ward.
Ann Shershen, Sixth Ward.
Todd Tancredi, Supervisor.
Alicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Jim Nelson, Attorney for the town.
All right. Our agenda isn't necessarily all that long. What I think we'll do first, the first thing on it is a presentation on, an update from O'Neill Dutton project. The project down, part of it's in the, small piece of it's in the town, most of it's in the city, but we thought it was time for an update, so why don't we let them get going first, and then we'll move on to the agenda.
Thank you, and good evening. Richard Cantor, Teen and Constantino, attorney for the applicant. The gentleman to my right is Lou Kaufman, who's the head operating guy for the developer. We have Andrew Featherston, and who's the project engineer, and Mike McCormick, who's the project architect. They're both here. Just by way of very brief overview, some time ago, the town of Poughkeepsie created an overlay district, which would, under its terms, allow this project. The matter that will be coming up before the board is the request to take that overlay district and place it on the portion of the O'Neill Dutton property that's in the town of Poughkeepsie. The city of Poughkeepsie zoning is in place, and there are ongoing proceedings before the City of Poughkeepsie Planning Board for the city segment. This is a mixed-use project, commercial and residential in the city, residential in the town. The town piece butts up to the
Hudson River Rowing Association.
right, the Vassar College rowing facility. So with that overview, I'm going to turn this over to Lou and Andrew and Mike, and they can give the board a brief description of what the project, how the project looks in its current iteration.
Okay.
Yeah, accent on brief, unless you guys have questions, and ladies. I'll use my handy dandy electronic device. The town portion.
Can,
Do you want me to do anything? Yeah, rotate that or?
yeah, if you want to just spin it a little bit, the audio, because they aren't, I don't know. I think those are. That's a slide.
Oh, okay.
If the audience can see it, I think it's definitely on this screen. I believe it's on that one as well.
Okay.
So.
Thank you. So this portion is in the city. The commercial component is along the main access, which is Dutchess Avenue, which is in the city. There are mid-rise buildings and then townhouses in the city, and then it's all townhouse-style buildings within the town. There are 84 units. Essentially, the design of the portion of the town in the town is to comply with the waterfront housing overlay district, and although the project obviously would be engineered as a whole, so that all the infrastructure and utilities, etc., would work together. The town portion will comply with the town interests and the ordinances. We have, I have my engineer, if you have any specific questions, or if you have any questions of me. I also have the architect who can give you the renderings that we've prepared about what the townhouses are going to look like, which I think would be most interesting to you. So unless you have specific questions now, or you want to hold them, I'll let them.
82 or 84 units, is that what's permitted as of right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, if you were to place the,
But that's
yes,
just what,
it
that's
is
what
as of the
zoning-
waterfront housing overlay district, that's right.
Okay.
Yes. So Mr. McCormick?
How many units are in the city part?
309,
And how much square footage of commercial?
13,800.
Oh, really? So that's not too much, huh?
No, it's the site itself. The site is not like an accessible that you would stop in. It's more of a destination site, which hopefully will attract some restaurants and things of that nature. But you would be specifically going there. It would also hopefully service people that would visit the walkway over the Hudson and and the parkland, which will be along the riverfront. For your edification, there is a 1,400-foot riverfront, and that will be dedicated for public use. And this portion of it right here is within the town and would obviously be subject to the town's scrutiny. And I assume the planning board would have its input on what that looks like. We'll submit some design, but, you'll let us know what you want.
And I think in the past when we've spoken, there's been some conversation, which I think is a good idea, about some type of memorandum of understanding with the city that emergency response will be from the city first, since it's going to be a little difficult for, our people to get to, and hopefully that'll still be the case, because I think that's important.
I believe there'll be an intermunicipal agreement between the city and the town as to how they will break up the services.
Yeah, I would hope you'll initiate that conversation, because
Absolutely.
I really want that to.
I can do that immediately.
Okay.
Now, if I recall correctly, there was a question, I think you guys wanted us to forgive our recreation fee to help the parkland. I think that came up one night, and we were pretty solid we weren't going to do that. So I hope that's not still in your planning design.
Well, actually, I wasn't aware that it was not a possibility. I believe that our suggestion was that the park is in lieu of rec fees, but I hear you. I can't say I'm thrilled about that, but it's certainly something we have to explore, and I'll discuss that. But I hear you. Yes.
Anything else? Mike, do you have something you want to show us the renderings? If you need a microphone that's loose, the black one here, you can move. You can use Mike. You just have to turn it on. Give it about 20 seconds to fire up.
I'll run back
Either way.
and forth, yeah.
Okay.
This is a rendering, and this is from the northern portion of the site in the corner, looking down river. And so that if you were on the northern portion of the site,
This is looking south.
yeah, looking south, this would be where HRRA is now. That's the corner of the property right here proper, the river, of course. And this was the architecture that we started to develop. As we've been going along, we've had meetings with several entities, including certainly the city planning board, with Scenic Hudson, with county planning, and we've actually evolved and this is an elevation view, but we've evolved the architecture into more of what we would see in a river city, in terms of up and down, in terms of the roof lines of the buildings themselves, varied architecture, so it looks like separate buildings almost that would have evolved over time, so that it more looks organic in terms of the composition of the buildings themselves. We would certainly have some brick accents in terms of materials, and the materials we would change in different areas in terms of being a hardy plank board, certainly painted, and really you can see that it starts to take on a little life going down the river, proper. So instead of something that looks more homogeneous, this really looks more organic, and that's how we're moving along with the architecture proper.
Okay.
And these would be a 15-unit and a 12-unit townhouse, that's what we call them.
And is that 3 stories?
It's 3 stories over, and the bottom really has a parking area from the back, access from the back, but anything you would see from the riverfront and from what we call the streetscapes would have porches, so that you don't see the garage doors. The garage doors are in the back of these buildings.
Okay.
So that from a streetscape and certainly from the river, you don't see any garage doors at all.
Okay. All right.
So from the river, it's 4 stories tall?
Yes, correct.
Questions?
Yeah, the setback looks like you're saying the building's back further from the river than you were before. Has that distance increased? And how, is it out of the floodplain?
I'll let Andrew answer that.
The flood,
Andrew, you're gonna need to use a microphone if you stand up there. Okay, either way, either way.
There if you want.
Can you take it out?
You can pull that out, just turn the little switch on top, turn it on.
hello.
It'll be.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Oh, there it goes. Want this?
The 100-year floodplain is elevation 8. We have, the site is a brownfield site from the former industrial use. So there was a remediation done and a capping of 2 foot of clean soil just for that purpose. We're lifting above that to take the entire site out of the floodplain, exception being the park front.
Yeah.
The park, similar with many parks and recreation facilities, can be inundated in an extreme storm event, a less frequent storm like a 100-year storm or a Sandy. For example, Sandy backed up the water in the Hudson River above elevation 9. That's around a 500-year flood. Our buildings are above that. There's nothing lower than, I think it's around 11 or 12 for the elevation. So, and that's garage floors. So we're well out of the floodplain. As far as the distance back, I could measure that for you and tell you what that is, how far back we are from the river
To the face of the building.
to the face of the
Yeah.
building.
2.5
It's about 125 feet.
Okay, wow.
knew you were going to say that.
Andrew, there are no living quarters on the bottom floors? They're all garages?
I'm sorry, I
The
didn't.
bottom floors are all garages? There's no living quarters at all on the bottom?
There's it's essentially garages on the rear, and there's like a small area that you come from the garage into the building proper, going into the stairs up top.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the landscaped front, if you can recall, you always notice around the city, they seem to get a lot of debris. Unfortunately, that Hudson will have a lot of debris. Do we know who's going to be responsible for cleaning up that recreational front area if we do get a little bit of a flood, and you know how the wood will sort of come up?
We were just discussing that with people in the county and the state, and that is something that has to be determined. We believe that ultimately the town should own that portion, but it may very well be another public entity, such as the state or the county. So that ownership issue needs to be determined. As to the maintenance, we had suggested that we we be part of a coalition, whether it's bid or whatever, that would help with that cleanup. But again, our intention is to design a park that will be very low maintenance. We're not going to provide for landscaping that needs grass cutting and things of that nature. We're going to try and a flood resistant or not flood resistant, that it would be able to deal with that, and that whatever amenities are in there, and I'm not sure how much of those amenities would be in the park area, the town area, sorry. So we're expecting to make it as maintenance-free as possible, certainly on the town portion.
Okay. Anything else?
Just one other thing I just want to throw out there. I've seen this before, but you guys are taking into consideration probably the harsher winters generally on the body of the Hudson River. I know you got brick there. You'd said, hey, we're going to put plywood up painted. I mean, there's probably...
We've actually added a foot to the elevations at the floor levels in the development portion. As we said, it's part of a brownfield in the park area, so there's at least 2 feet above what they exist today. Beyond that, you'll start to get into issues with DEC about what's acceptable or not. So one of the issues that we have to deal with in our cleanup is the soil erosion stabilization, which is overseen by the state. I might also add that the state has signed on for a grant for the design, as well as, and we're hoping that in the next round we'll probably get some funds for construction. So the state has indicated its wishes to get this done. And of course, I needn't tell you that we've reviewed it and we are in substantial compliance with the town LWRP. Putting forward your policies that are in effect, and we'll work with Mr. Wilson to confirm that, that stays in conformance.
Are there buildings behind these buildings?
There are, yes, if you look at the site plan itself, you can see that there are buildings along the riverfront proper, and then there are buildings behind it.
Yeah.
But there's, up on top, in terms of the properties behind, there are buildings more in the city proper here, but over in this section, there's really some industrial buildings, but that's
So
about it.
in the town section, is the two buildings along the river and behind it is parking?
Everything to.
In the gray is
everything
a
in this
building.
direction from the green line is in the town. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buildings.
So the four across the back, on the east side of the
Mike.
property,
Yeah.
Mike?
how tall are those buildings?
Oh, sorry. They're all 4-story.
These are they're similar in
They're 3 over 1.
in what they appear to be, but the land slopes upward as you get from west to east, so the elevations will rise as we move eastward. Over here, there is no development. Essentially, what you have here is, I believe, the commercial building. Is that what it's called? The mechanical building for
Yeah,
Metro North.
Used to be mechanical
Then
construction.
you have the railroad tracks, and then you have Route 9. So the impact along the eastern border is minimal to neighbors. On the northern border, there's a very big buffer with HRRA and Vassar. We're in constant discussions with them about how to minimize the effect on them. And there's going to be, we're going to put up a gate on the boundary as they want to see on the development. And with the park, we have to work, we're trying to satisfy everybody, but satisfying everybody is not always an easy thing. So we'll try and satisfy you.
You say that to everybody.
Funny, I heard you tell that to the city, Lou. Anybody have anything else? You gentlemen have anything else you'd like to share? All right. Appreciate the update.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. So that brings us to the end of our presentation. What I'm going to do is run through the agenda, and then we'll take questions on agenda items, and we'll keep the meeting moving. Agenda item number 2 is to authorize the referral of this project to referral of zoning amendments. 3 is to set the public hearing date for a change in our home occupations code. 4 is to set a public hearing date for a sign amendment for the Arlington Town Center. 5 is to set a public hearing date for change in the Salt Point Town Center. 6 is again to set a public hearing date for 195 North Grand Avenue property maintenance. 7 is to set a public hearing date for 26 North Grand Avenue unsafe building. 8 is to authorize the bid award for our town parks, buildings, and medians. 9 is approval of promotions in our water department, which we spoke about last week, or at least maybe it was last week. 10 is to authorize budget modifications for the sewer projects we have in the works. 11 is to authorize budget modifications in the water department. 12 is to authorize tax cert settlement. 13 is to authorize also a tax cert settlement. 14 is to authorize the approval of a homeland security grant. 15 is to authorize a parade for Babe Ruth baseball. 16 is to authorize Vassar College fireworks for a reunion weekend. 17 is to accept the resignation of a historic preservation board member. 18 is a notification Procedural conference, West Point project, voltage transmission line along and under the Hudson River. 19 is notification, Town of Newburgh public hearing. 20 is notification, secret notice of amended application in Vassar College Science Building. We've got 21 is acceptance of some minutes. And then we have one special consent item. It's notification of a claim that's come in. So I'd like to suspend the rules for questions or comments on agenda items.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
If anybody would like to address the board. Doreen?
Well, I actually have a question on the project that you just saw. Can I
sure.
get that in under number 2 since
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
mentioned? Okay. At the February of 2012 Committee of the Whole meeting, Mr. Kaufman had said that cleanup and building of the parkland would come from grants and not from money from the town or the city. And then subsequently, when the FEIS, the Final Environmental Impact Statement, was created in March of 2012, that's where they asked for the waiver for the town's rec fee in order to use it as part of the cleanup of the contaminated strip of land to be used as public parkland. So, again, I don't know exactly where this money is coming from, but I'm against. And then I know Councilman Safone stated that I'm against any waiving of the rec fees to clean up the park. And then if that's not done, if it's not waived, I mean, somebody has to pay for that, the cleanup of that, because from what I understand, there was a pre-rec that in order for a CO to be issued, both of those parcels had to be cleaned up, the contamination. So again, I just don't see why the town should have to pick up any of the cost of that parkland. It's going to be shared by the town and the city, and other people are going to use it. So as a taxpayer, I really don't. And also keep in mind at the February 2009 Town Board meeting, Mr. Kaufman had said that the project was going to get $18 million in tax credits under the Brownfield Cleanup Program. So again, as a town resident, I really don't want to have to pay anything extra for that parkland. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. That's you. Well,
Maybe a couple questions that could be answered about this Dutton property thing.
Okay.
Where does the town property come involved? How far north do we go from that part that they had with the few houses
Mike,
that were in the town?
I think the question is, from the line that you showed, do we go north? Is it all property up to Marist, or does the city come in and then I don't think so. So whoever's going to answer, you'd have to come up here, if you don't mind, because I don't know the answer.
So the question.
I'll start talking to you. There you go.
What I'm asking is what the part that you're saying is in the town of Poughkeepsie, and I don't know if he can answer it either. How far north does the town property go that the town is involved with this?
Well, it goes.
I thought that was all city property, but evidently not.
What is it, like
Just
7
that-
acres?
You know where that intersection,
Yeah.
you know where you
I know the
that
area
bridge?
very well, but I didn't know that the town was.
We have a piece.
A little bit down there.
The boat house is in our property, Vassar and Marist.
Marist, and then it goes up to the Hyde Park line.
Is that all ours the rest of the way up?
Oh, yeah.
3.5 acres.
All the way up
Okay.
to the end of
Well,
Marist?
Marist College is certainly in the town of Poughkeepsie.
Yeah,
Hudson River
okay.
Rowing Association is the town of
I
Poughkeepsie.
thought, okay. I
And then-
wasn't sure if any of the city
Yeah,
pulled back
yeah,
out
no.
there or not.
Okay, I didn't.
Yeah,
I thought
is
that
it
was all
Quiet
city.
Cove?
What's that? Quiet Cove is.
Yeah, Quiet Cove's in the
Cove's
town.
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it'll-
Yeah.
The other question, I don't know if you can answer it either, they mentioned about the riverfront access from the river. Now, do you know if they had done extensive cleaning of the river in front of this project to allow any kind of, I assume they meant marine access? Because that property is notorious for
Yeah, they've had,
sunken
I
logs
think
and
it's
from the
been a
old.
big cleanup, but we'll let them answer.
Oh, there's hundreds of them.
Our cleanup extends to the banks of the river. So the river bed itself, I believe, is the subject of a cleanup from Central Hudson and maybe other parties. I'm not certain who that might be. But we are not, we've done nothing nor intend to do anything within the river.
You go basically to the water, to the
You know,
water
To the
line.
water line, to the,
So
but the riverfront access, when they refer to that, I believe what they mean is, you know, for the public, and the public can get in through Dutchess Avenue. That's what they think, what I believe is meant when everybody inquires about, will the public have access to the riverfront, and that's what is meant.
Okay.
No future intentions of putting dockage out for the people of your development that will eventually be able to?
Not at this time, no. There is none, no, and there's a certain amount of resistance to water uses by our neighbor to the north, by, you know, Vassar HRRA. They are very concerned about any motor uses, anything like that. So, at the present time, the presentation of the park is essentially landscaped with a 12-foot wide path ambulating from Dutchess Avenue up toward the border, our border.
North end.
Our border is approximately 3 and some odd acres in the town. So, of which maybe 0.6 acres is the park, so to speak. So there's not a significant amount of space for the town
At this point, it's basically a walking trail along the river.
It's a passive recreation. It's a walking trail. So that it could comply with state policies about greenway. It'll comply with local policies about, you know, access to the waterfront. But it's passive recreation, which is something that the town encourages, you know, waterfront park, which is what this will be. This would be the definition of a waterfront park.
One last question. The road that runs up behind it by the mechanical building, is that going to be used as an entrance exit for this?
We propose to only use an entrance basically for residents and emergency vehicles, and that would be toward the Hoffman Street Bridge. Other than that, there's no other access on North Water Street, which is with the road you're referring to. And that's another thing that we're working out. That's, you know, within the city, and, you know, we have to deal with Vassar, et cetera. But there's not going to be any access certainly within the town portion of that. But there's only one access, if at all.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? All right, see no one, I make a motion to resume the rules?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Jay?
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby approve the referral of the O'Neill Dutton project application for waterfront housing overlay district designation to the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board for recommendation pursuant to Town Code Chapter 210-154. So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Whereas the town board has received a communication from the Director of Municipal Development recommending amendments to Chapter 210 entitled Zoning, specifically Section 210-74 entitled Home Occupations, and whereas the proposed amendments are attached hereto and incorporated herein, and the town board does hereby waive a verbatim reading of said amendments and does direct that said amendments be spread across the record as if they, in fact, had been read verbatim. And whereas the action to amend the zoning laws is an unlisted action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the town board has determined that the proposed amendment must be referred to the Dutchess County Planning Department and Economic Development and to the Town Planning Board for review and recommendation, and whereas the amendment requires a public hearing, now therefore be resolved that the town board hereby states that because only the town board can consider and adopt changes to the town code, and that it is only the only involved agency that the town board hereby declares that is the lead agency for purposes of coordinating the environmental review of this matter pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law, and the town board hereby sets a public hearing on the proposed amendments for April 2nd, 2014 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as matter may become to be heard. Town Hall, 1 Over Rocker Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, and the Town Board refers this matter to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development for a recommendation pursuant to General Municipal Law 239 sub M, and the Town Board refers this matter to the Planning Board for an advisory report pursuant to Town Code Section 210-154. The Town Board directs the Town Clerk to notify the Town Clerks of each of the surrounding municipalities of the public hearing pursuant to General Municipal Law 239MN. So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion?
This is coming back around. It's been a while since it was in front of us. And I still have some concerns that we could make this too restrictive on people that are trying to pay their bills and make a living. And I think we want to be careful about sort of overshooting the runway. And I know there's a couple issues out there that we're trying to deal with. I don't want to catch a whole bunch of people in here sort of inadvertently. So things like, and it's also going to be tough to kind of police some of this where I think somewhere in it says you can only have one employee. So, if you take your average doctor or dentist office, if they have a home office or even a law office, I have one, one employee in a doctor's office, usually they have a nurse and a secretary. So you kind of make it.
Yeah, but wouldn't they be grandfathered in?
But if I'm talking about new people coming through. I think we want to try to control things that are going to be detrimental to the neighborhood, but not control things that aren't.
Well,
I mean, a small doctor's office, a small dentist's office, an attorney's office, engineer's office. Those are things that, again, a doctor's office as an example, you probably have a secretary and a nurse at the very least. I'd suggest that in the kind of the default category, we move that from one employee to at least two. And then where it says, I think the default category where you can have up to 2 customers at a time, whereas a special permit, you can have up to 5. I kind of think it might make sense to move that up also, just because otherwise what you're going to get is people, when you get neighbors that have a dispute, you're going to have them standing there counting and trying to tell you that, he's got 2 people working for him, not
I hear what
one.
you're saying.
He had 3 people there on Tuesday at 9 o'clock, and he's only supposed to have.
I just think it's important to protect the integrity of a residential neighborhood. When someone moves into a residential, like my street, I have no home occupation around me as far as I know, so it's not a personal issue, but I want to make sure my neighborhood's residential.
Right, and that's where it's at. I think there's a lot of them.
You get a lot of traffic with.
There's a chiropractor on Spack and Kill. There's a dentist on Lower Spack and Kill. There's a bunch of them that they're there, and most people don't notice them. You don't really get a lot of complaints, and I think we should try to make sure that we don't all of a sudden scoop those into a category that's not permitted, because then you have people. And usually, what happens is then friendly neighbor calls up and complains about someone and tells us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going out looking to try to cause problems for people in the world, but I'd prefer to see that general category where the people that we're sort of leaving alone and letting them do their thing a little bit more flexible, because like I said, one employee probably exempts just about everybody out, unless other than somebody who, I'm not sure what you do if you have a home office where you're working home alone, what type of business you could be running. Maybe some sort of mail order type business, but even those, you usually have somebody else involved. And the customer thing, we had a guy on Old Farms Road that was complaining about the number of people coming and going from a doctor's office. If the doctor has 1 patient an hour and the patient shows up with, if it's a pediatrician and the patient presumably the parent's going to drive, that's 2 people. The next patient coming in for the next hour is putting them over the limit. So we kind of create.
Yeah, but we're giving them flexibility to run their business from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on any day. That's a long time.
Right. No, I'm not talking about the hours. I'm talking about the basic. Just the basic things that the basic criteria almost exempts everybody out, where you can't really do a home business because it's hard to have only 2 customers in at a time. Because again, if it's a pediatrician, kids got to walk there. Because if they bring their parent, the next person coming in for the next appointment.
Well, the intention here, and you're absolutely right, Stefan, we had we had this before us a couple years ago, and honestly, I don't remember why we didn't continue to work on it. I really don't. But one of the things that we've run into is we have had a number of people over, well, certainly over the past 5-6 years, who are really just solo proprietors, people who are, they're doing baked goods at home and they're taking them out and putting them on consignment, selling at various convenience stores, things like that. And, they don't have employees, or, maybe there's a spouse who's helping, something like that. And we're putting them through an entire special use permit process. Nobody shows up at the public hearings. It's costly on the front end between the application fees and the escrows and what have you. And it just seemed that the way that we have sort of spec'd this out. And again, I'm open to suggestions to not to try to tighten it down too much or loosen it up too much. But the first category is a registration that you come in, you talk to Sarah. You say, here's my business, it's just me, I'm baking cookies or whatever it is that they happen to be doing. She verifies the information, she registers the business, they go off and they do their thing. And it's real simple, and it's designed particularly for that sole proprietor who maybe has one employee, and otherwise there's not a lot of come and go from the business. It's not a doctor's office, or they're not running some kind of a trade, but they got a lot of people coming in and out. But the second category, where you have that, where you've got people coming in and out, you've got employees, kicks you into a special use permit review, and I think that's fair. So, but that's the overall intent.
Other than the one on Olds Farms Road, where it seemed to be an personal issue between the neighbors.
It's personal, right.
I don't think we've got a lot of complaints about the professional offices and kind of the smaller businesses. You get some complaints about when people are cooking and there's, food smells. You get complaints about the tow truck drivers when there's noise.
Traffic is going to be the major.
The complaints that I've heard the most have been the auto repairs, kind of, because you get the cars parked and then you got
and
the
they're
junk.
not allowed.
Right, and so that's why I'd like to look at this as we're trying to tweak it to sort of prevent some things that really aren't wanted. We tweak it to allow things that really don't have much impact at all. And again, like I said, the one employee is that the way it's worded is that one non-resident employee period, or one non-resident employee at a time. And if a doctor has two hygienists,
right, it's one non-resident employee, period, says may be employed in the home occupation.
So if a dentist has two part-time hygienists, they couldn't work, they couldn't.
Well, no, they get kicked into needing a special use permit. In other words, they don't qualify for the simple registration, they get kicked into a special use permit category.
But Neil, why should they be kicked in for something of a small use like that? I mean, it's no different than somebody having their own beauty parlor and then they just happen to need somebody else to come in and help them out, or she's away. It seems like you should leave the non-resident employee part out altogether, because it comes to the point that we're actually governing somebody's business. You say you got an accountant and all of a sudden, this time of year, he needs 2 employees. So then he's outside that box. And as Stefan said, you're going to have a neighbor that's going to come in, and it's going to happen somewhere. The neighbor's going to say, now there's 3 employee cars there, and it's going to cause an issue. I don't think the employee part should be in there at all, and that would probably alleviate 90% of that problem, because the spaces and things like that I don't think are an issue, and parking space would be more the issue. If you don't have the proper parking, you can't expand your business. It's time you took your business out of your home, moved into a real business.
Well, that's
right, and the parking, I think, is a big, I think Jay's right. I'd sort of rather try to address the parking in this than the people, because
they can just park on the street. What would like my neighborhood? What would keep someone, if I were running a business out of my house, what would keep me from just having people line up along my street all day as they come to if I'm a chiropractor, and they don't have to park in my driveway or in a parking spot?
Well, we had one in our neighborhood that tried that years ago as a beauty salon, and one of the things that the zoning board had told her is you have to have parking in your driveway, because she has a husband who liked to leave stuff out in the street, and then it was blocking everybody else, and it became an issue.
Yeah.
So, the parking was the issue. If your business is that big that you can't fit in your driveway, like the one by Martha Lawrence School, I don't know if it's a chiropractor or a doctor, he has a big enough parking area in the front, which that sort of fits. If his business gets too big where they got to start parking on the street, well, it's time that you moved on.
And the dentist down by Millbank has a big parking area also where, I mean, that's why I say, I think there's a lot of them that just fit and they're fine. And the employee part of it, I don't think fits in this. And one, I think is just too restrictive because basically by saying we're going to give everybody that's just doing a little something the opportunity to just do it without having to come in and go through the ZBA process, you kind of end up bouncing most of them into the ZBA process because most people running any kind of a real business probably have more than one employee at any given time. And it's not going to impact, that doesn't impact the neighborhood as much. Because I even looked at the deliveries and I'm like, oh, you know what, 4 commercial deliveries, I guess that's fine. Again, that's a problem. I think we get into these problems where we don't have the manpower to sit outside somebody's house and count how many times a delivery truck comes in. We don't have the manpower to count how many customers are coming in per hour. So we want to give a little bit of flexibility that's not too crazy. The second category seems to be pretty reasonable, and I don't think at any point, in most neighborhoods, if you had 5 customers at somebody's home-based business at any given time, I don't think that drastically blocks off the road and changes things.
Well, but 5 cars plus your 2 employees would be 7 vehicles.
Well, but I think what happens though is that number, when you get above that number, you start to get into the point where you're going to have too many people, and that's where it's easier for us to be able to say, yeah, you're over that limit. The 1 employee and 2 customers, I just think it sort of doesn't exempt anybody out. It throws everybody into the ZBA process.
Well,
and again, what you have right now.
I hear what you're saying.
What you have right now is a lot of.
That's that bad,
But
though. I still think it's very important to protect.
Everybody is in now. If you flip to it's actually the deleted section.
Yeah.
You go down through all of the requirements for a home occupation. It says, this is the language today, no more than 2 non-resident employees shall be permitted.
But that doesn't mean,
it goes down.
because it's currently in it now doesn't mean I think it's great either.
I think it's important to protect the integrity of our residential neighborhoods. I do also,
but
if you have 5 clients plus 2 employees, you've got 7 vehicles outside your house.
At least,
That's
that's more the issue I
That could
have with
potentially be a
parking.
decent-sized parking spot.
I mean, any normal
In a
house,
residential neighborhood.
7 vehicles, you got 5, customers and 2 employees, well, odds are you probably have 3 of your own vehicles. Now you have 10, you're blocking up 4 neighbors.
Could be an R20 or an R4.
Let's have one like
I mean-
the gentleman by Martha Lawrence there, I mean, he's got a big enough parking lot, and he's.
Right, there's those
He's
exceptions.
residential, but he's also on a main road. I wouldn't even want to drive with that big, parking lot that big in my neighborhood.
That's why it's kind of nice, I think, to push them into the zoning process so that if they have a piece of property that fits, like the guy on Spag and Kill, where you can put a nice parking lot in, get people off the road, fine.
He's running his business in the confines of his property. I'd have more of an issue with the parking than I do with the employee, because the employee is a number. I mean, you can have an employee that can work, the parking is the issue. I mean, neighbors that don't want people parking in front of their house because they have their kids and they want their kids to park in front of their house. So
can we add language that if you have where it ties it to if you have no off-street parking, then you're limited to X amount of customers? Because I mean, if the chiropractor on Spack and Kill and Flower Lane, he's probably got off-street parking for probably 5 to 10
Yeah, and that works fine.
cars. So with that property, you look at that and you say, that's not an issue. And he's also on Spack and Kill, so that's not an
Right,
issue.
so if you have a spot like that, it pushes them to the zoning process and the zoning board.
Well, no, my thought is, if we tie the number of employees and/or customers to the amount of off-street parking, if you have enough land, you can put in off-street parking.
Well, I guess we'd have to tie it to the size of the lot then, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're all right. I mean, the size of a lot is going to affect how much room is available for creation of off-street parking. But it's not just the size of a lot; it's where that parking ultimately gets located. The scheme here is that as a home occupation, it's you're not impinging on the residential character of the neighborhood in which it's located. And trust me, there are. Just sort of anecdotally, I mean, there are people that are working out of their homes, sole proprietors. Sure. They maybe have an accountant who comes in, a couple times a week and does their books or whatever. They're quietly working. They're making a living. We don't even know they're there. Web-based businesses, mail order, whatever.
But that's where I think the idea where we exempt some basic ones out makes sense.
And that was exactly what it was intended, right?
With the criteria too tight, we create situations where now all of a sudden neighbors have a reason.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we?
Things that nobody else is being impacted by. And again, if you don't like your neighbor and you realize this is on the books, you can come in and go, he's got 2 employees. He shouldn't have 2 employees.
Yeah.
And
We want that pushed
Yeah,
into
and
the
just so
zoning.
we're clear, anybody who has a permit today, like the dentist on Millbank, and, they're grandfathered. Whatever they have, they have.
But I also, and you also have people that have moved towards home offices because it's a bad economy and that's what they can afford to keep things going. And we have.
That's exactly what we've seen.
We have God knows how many, we have a lot of properties that we're maintaining and that the town is dealing with, that people have walked away with. And then the foreclosure list is just.
But I agree with you, but I think
we want to hit some sort of fair balance.
Very fine line.
there's a fine line because.
No, I agree. And I agree with maintaining the integrity of the neighborhood and making sure that you don't turn somebody, because people buy a house, that's their little piece of the world, and they're entitled to not having a major business next to them. But I think we got to try to figure out how to balance it so that we're not grouping in a whole bunch of people that you never even realize they're doing it.
You think about that weenie wagon type situation we put in place a few months ago. We want to keep them moving. We're saying they're not paying tax on the guy who bought a building and has the expense of real estate tax. It's the same philosophy here. You got the person who bought the little storefront and putting money into real estate tax. Why would anybody do that if they can run a business out of their house? You know what I mean? So I understand what you're saying. Why don't we do this? Can we, if everyone takes a second look at this, talk to some of your constituents, we could bring this back the third meeting in March.
19th?
And we'll just set it up,
Yeah.
push the public hearing date out.
Yeah, so to kind of recap then, we're gonna look at taking out this employee number and focusing on availability of parking
Todd,
as
can we
one of
still,
the
we can
standards.
still put this out there as it is and just discuss it? I don't think there's any major
Problem is,
change.
we set the public hearing date, we make a change.
It's not major enough that,
Well,
Yeah, but
it depends on what we come up with.
I think it's better off putting it to the third meeting in March.
I just don't want it to get lost.
I agree.
We'll bring it on the
Yeah,
third,
I'm
we'll
more
bring it back on the
comfortable
third meeting of March.
Okay.
I don't want to have to advertise and then re-advertise. I agree with Stefan.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm more comfortable giving you something that we understand and we can explain.
Yep, I agree. No, it's good.
And I'm fine with this. I just want to make sure we try to tailor
Yeah.
it so that
Yeah.
we
No, giving it a close look
resolve the
makes
issues
sense.
that we want to resolve and not
All
anything
right.
more.
Neil, why don't you stay right there, because I have a feeling you may be
don't move
back
now.
up. So I make a motion to,
Hearing out too.
I'm sorry?
It won't be April 2nd then.
No,
no, we're
they're
not setting
gonna
the date. So I
table
make a
this.
motion to table
Yeah.
resolution number 3 until the third, what's the third meeting of March? What's the date of
The
that?
19th.
To March 19th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Where are we, Joe?
Whereas the town board has received a communication from the Director of Municipal Development recommending amendments to Chapter 210 entitled Zoning, specifically Section 210-125 pertaining to the Arlington Town Center ATC District Wall and freestanding signs, and whereas the proposed amendments are attached hereto and incorporated herein, and the town board does hereby waive a verbatim reading of said amendments and does direct that said amendments be spread across the record as if they in fact had been read verbatim. And whereas the actions to amend the zoning law is an unlisted action of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, and whereas the town board has determined that the proposed amendment must be referred to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development and to the Town Planning Board for review and recommendation, and whereas the amendments require a public hearing, now therefore be resolved that, 1, the town board hereby states that because only the town board can consider and adopt changes to the town code, that it is the only involved agency, and the board hereby declares that it's a lead agency for purposes of coordinating the environmental review of this matter pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law. And 2, the town board hereby sets a public hearing on the proposed amendment for April 2nd, 2014 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may come to be heard in the Town Hall, 1 Over Rock Road, Poughkeepsie, New York. And the town board refers this matter to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development for recommendation pursuant to GML 239-M. And 4, the town board refers this matter to the planning board for an advisory report pursuant to the town code, sections 210-154. And 5, the town board directs the town clerk to notify the town clerks of each of the surrounding municipalities of the public hearing pursuant to the GML 239 and so moved.
Motion and a second, any discussion?
Yeah, okay, now this one is primarily to allow you to have a larger sign on your awning.
Yeah, what you're looking at actually is a codification of the amendments that the ZBA has essentially been granting over the past number of years.
Okay.
The signage that's allowed when we adopted the code in 2007, there was an awful lot of discussion about signage, and we agreed that we would revisit it. This was one section, and if you look at the top, it's not just ATC, it's all of the town centers. The experience has actually been in ATC, because at this point, Salt Point Center and McDonald Heights and the RRH and the Crown Heights have not been developed. But what has ended up happening is the zoning board has been very consistently applying sort of a want of a better word, kind of a proportionality exam. When the applications come in, they want to see a rendering, a photo rendering. And they are assessing the proposed size of the wall sign or the freestanding sign or the awning sign against the available space. And we've had a number of applications that have come in and, of course, asked for the world, and the ZBA says, no, shrink it down. And where we've ended up, some have been, 27 square feet on the wall sign, and some have been 22 and that sort of thing. But when you look at it kind of as an average, and the freestanding signs and the limited number of awning signs, it's in that 25 and then 20 for the awning. So since we've had this experience, it seemed to make more sense to just simply codify what the ZBA has been doing, because otherwise we're putting people through the paces and the cost and the expense of coming in, getting a variance, and this is what they're ending up with anyway. And so it seemed to make sense. So that's the proposal, just to try to make it a little bit easier for businesses.
Good question. I didn't think about this before, but do you have to allow, say, we're increasing this from 15 to 25. My fear is if we increase, let's say, a wall sign to not exceed an area of 25 square feet where it was 15, now, I'm not saying the zoning board would, but now the zoning board says, well, geez, it's allowed 25, let's allow 35.
Yeah.
Is there any way you can say?
I don't see that happening because of the very experience. So in other words, the ZBA having set basically the upper limit, if you will, through its decision. We've had a lot of them.
We can't maximize an upper limit and say never any bigger than.
No, but because the ZBA has also through its decision, it's bound by its prior decisions. So I think, I think somebody would have difficulty saying, okay, well, now 25 square feet is the floor, I want 50.
Well,
and the ZBA should be applying, and I agree with you, but the ZBA should be applying its prior decisions, for those kinds of applications.
One way to clean up ZBA's prior decisions would be the town board to change the town code, correct? Because if the ZBA is saying, let's say the ZBA is given 50 feet to everybody, and the current code says 25, and we slide it down to 10, those prior decisions are no longer going to bind the ZBA if the town code's been changed, correct? If you change a code that they're working off it, if you slid it down, those prior decisions, you kind of wash those out, right? So here, I
don't see it that way.
If you change your code and you change what you're permitting under the code, and rather than going up, rather than doubling it, you cut it in half. How is a new applicant going to come in and say, well, the ZBA has always been giving 25 feet?
Because you're not nullifying those prior.
You're not nullifying them, but the code has changed. So you can't say that they set a precedent if the ZBA gives 25 feet and to everybody that comes through the door, no matter what you're doing, and you're saying that sets a precedent, that means we can never rewrite our code to change the size of a sign, which...
No, I'm not saying that at all.
You could, to wipe out that precedent, you could go in the other direction. But I'm not saying we should, but I think Todd does have a point in that when you slide the scale up, everybody slides up with it, and then what you do have is that's everybody. What we always get here is everybody comes in, and what they can absolutely get as of right is their starting point, and they always ask for more. So I think you.
Yeah,
could-
I didn't even
no,
think
I mean,
about that. I didn't even
understand
think
your-
about that
yeah,
before.
no, I understand your
You
point.
could create
I
the tendency
don't agree
where,
with it, but yeah,
where
no, I
now
understand your point.
everything's getting bigger by default because now we've slid the baseline up and now everyone's starting.
And we always have to provide for an outlet. We can't say
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
maximum
Yeah,
sign
you do.
allowed is
Yeah.
something.
The ZBA is the outlet.
But we
They're
don't,
the relief
they don't
valve.
have to grant it.
Oh,
No, I know they don't have to grant it,
How
but
Not
often,
granted.
how often have they granted it? If it says 15 square feet now, and we're moving it to 25,
We get several a year over the past 5 years, 6 years since we instituted this.
so 18,
well,
we've made it
Not a
bigger
hard-
than the current code.
What's happened is that, we have the zoning board through its variance power has been granting larger signs than what's allowed, both freestanding and wall signs.
And if the board didn't want to allow that, what wording do we put in it so that the zoning board of appeals can't go
The
past it?
zoning board is the ultimate relief.
So we can't tell them, no, under no circumstances larger than what,
We could make the sign ordinance more restrictive.
You can make it very
which would
restrictive
change
if you
that
wish.
precedent of the
And then you're
zoning board.
sending, right, and you would have an effect on that, right, and then
and
so
then
what
they
you,
can't override that?
well, they
It's
can
not
always
overridden by,
provide
Can
it.
override it.
it's not overridden
well,
by
it's not
default.
overriding, I mean, they're granting the relief, for
But what-
people who
but
come
what
in and
Ne-
show a hardship.
But what Neil is saying, if you gave the last 10 people that came through 25 feet, you can't tell me no because you've already set the precedent. But if
Which
we
is
change,
effectively happening today, right.
if we change that underlying ordinance, if we made it more restrictive, the next guy through the door can't say you gave the last 10, so I get it also because the
Right, by
underlying
moving it
ordinance has now
down,
changed.
You've set the new,
Right.
the new ceiling, if you will, right.
Right. So I kind of feel like I'd just leave it alone, let them come through the ZBA because some of the,
Should it be based on the size of the business property and the building?
Based on
Well,
that.
that's kind of what the ZBA has been
Yeah.
doing, is looking
Right.
at the
So
linear
that's- if
footage
we're
of
gonna
the
worry
building
about-
front and then figuring out, is this proportional to it? And
Yeah.
that's effectively what they're doing.
That's what I was thinking, is we should be careful about it. I mean, if you have a larger building that may need it,
but the
bigger than-
ZBA is adjusting those things up
Right.
accordingly.
They're doing it today.
And that's kind of their function. So, right now, we're not jamming with action right now, right? I mean, the economy's kind
We get several a year in Arlington.
Yeah, there's still-
But I still leave it up.
It's restrictive, it's a
My
small.
preference would be to leave it alone, let the ZBA keep reviewing them and decide when they want to.
Yeah, I think I-
And
Okay.
I think I could agree with
Yeah,
that.
I just didn't think it through
Yeah, no,
carefully,
that's
but
fine.
I would agree, and it's worth having the discussion, but I would agree with that.
All right.
Because we had issues years ago, we don't want to go back to that.
So I make a motion to,
Just nay it, no?
yeah, I guess we
Going
could
to
do
table
that.
this indefinitely?
Well, can we just nay it and we shoot it down, or?
Do whatever you wish.
Okay, all those in favor of approving item 4? Opposed?
Nay.
Pass, motion fails 7-0.
Whereas the town board has received a communication from the Director of Municipal Development recommending amendments to Chapter 210 entitled zoning, specifically sections 21011 and 21026 pertaining to the amendments to the Salt Point Center. Whereas the proposed amendments are attached hereto and incorporated herein, and the town board does hereby waive a verbatim reading of said amendments and does direct that said amendments will be spread across the board as if they in fact had been read verbatim. And whereas the action to amend the zoning law is an unlisted action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, whereas the town board has determined that the proposed amendment must be referred to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development and to the town planning board for review and recommendation. And whereas the amendments require a public hearing, that now therefore be it resolved that 1, the town board hereby states that because only the town board can consider and adopt changes to town code, that is the only involved agency, and the board hereby declares that as the lead agency for the purposes of coordinating the environmental review of this matter pursuant to Article 8 of the Environmental Conservation Law. And 2, the town board hereby sets a public hearing on the proposed amendments for April 2nd, 2014 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter may come to be heard in the Town Hall, 1 Over Arca Road, Poughkeepsie, New York. And 3, the town board refers this matter to Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development for a recommendation pursuant to GML 239M. 4, the town board refers this matter to the planning board for an advisory report pursuant to Town Code Sections 210-154. And 5, the town board directs the town clerk to notify the town clerks of each of the surrounding municipalities of the public hearing pursuant to GML 239NN. So moved.
Second?
Motion is second, any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. All these changes in the residential zoning, the underlying zoning, the Salt Point Town Center, when we did that, had no underlying zoning, correct?
Right, Salt Point Center is the zoning, right.
So we're now putting underlying residential zoning onto parcels within the Salt Point Town Center?
Which is, right, in other words, well, actually, this was, I think this was all, I think this was a 1 acre, I've forgotten, I think it might have been a half-acre zone. I think it might have been a 1 acre zone back when we were, before we did the zoning.
So how because there's 4 different categories of where parcels are going. How did we come up with what's getting what? Is it going back to what the initial underlying zoning was?
Yes.
Or is it going
Yes.
back to?
Right.
So everything was, if it was A, it's A, if it's B, it's B.
Right. With the exception, there's a little piece, and I'm looking at this map here.
The residential multifamily?
Well, this is Salt Point.
There's a little piece of residential multifamily that
Oh, we're
sticks
not
out
touching
there.
that.
What?
We're not touching that.
Yeah,
You're
that's
talking
just-
on this side of the
okay.
road here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not touching that.
Okay. So
Yeah, well,
I guess,
I just did this, it's the hatched areas. This big piece we already took out a couple of years ago, okay? There's this piece here, and you don't really see it, but there's a distance measurement back from the road, I think it was 1,000 feet or something like that. But there's a chunk of property, it's a much larger piece of property that's zoned for 4 acre. That's what this note is. It says proposed R4A, because there's a piece of this property unsubdivided from the 4 acre zone that would go back to all of that goes back to 4 acre.
okay, and then the other pieces that are supposed to go to R20.
Which have houses on them are going, right.
Have previously been R20.
Were R20,
So we're not
right.
adding any residential or.
No.
And now, here's the question also is, how do we do that? Because when we did these town centers, the Crown Heights Town Center, we had done as an overlay because I didn't want to take away the underlying zoning because if it never got built, it kind of frees everybody out. So now, how do we put underlying zoning in and the town center still there that it's not an I thought the town center was the zoning, so if you're going to put underlying zoning in, are we taking the town center out completely? Are we creating an overlay?
We're removing the town
We're taking
center
it off
from
of
these properties entirely. We're effectively sliding it down the road, if you will.
Okay.
And what we're doing is putting the underlying, the original, or something close to the original zoning for these properties. And they're large, and again, I'm talking the smaller ones, they all have houses on them, but we're returning them to residential, which is what they were pre-2007.
So the ones where these listed on page 3 of the resolution, where we have all these different parcels going
that's
back.
all the parcel numbers.
So the parcels that are going back to R20 are built out already?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we have houses on them already.
And the one going to residential multifamily, that's built out already? There's a bunch of parcels in paragraph 3 on page 3.
Oh, that refers to the landing zone. That refers to the parcel, the part where we're moving the town center to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the
It's
next part
It's
of the
rezoned from
action.
residential multifamily to
right.
Salt Point Center.
See, we have where the landing zone where we're moving it to has parts of it that are zone RM.
Okay, all right, now I get it.
Yeah, right, that's the existing zoning. This is where Salt Point and Innis Avenue come together. That RM is going away.
All right, yeah, it makes sense now. I just couldn't figure out how we were putting zoning under.
Yeah, that's why I had to give you a map, otherwise we'd be here.
I was away a little bit. I'm trying to get back up to speed here.
You're still in Hawaiian time?
Exactly.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Still on? 6?
Whereas orders to remedy copies of which are attached here too have been issued for property located 195 North Grand Avenue, Town of Poughkeepsie, State of New York, pursuant to Chapter 159 of the Town of Poughkeepsie Town Code, and whereas said order to remedy has not been complied with, now therefore be it resolved, the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby set the second day of April 2014 at 7:00 p.m. Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 Over Rock Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, as and for the time, date, and place of a public hearing to consider a recommendation from the zoning administrator of the town or its contract to remove and as needed continue to remove all solid waste, debris, and litter, all at the above property, so it will not become unsightly, the cost of which work shall constitute a lien and a charge on the above real property until paid, satisfied, or discharged, and shall be collected in the same manner as other town charges. So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Whereas by Resolution 1218, Number 10 of 2013, adopted on December 18th, 2013, the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie has determined that 1.5-story building located at 26 North Grand Avenue, Poughkeepsie, County of Dutchess, State of New York, bearing grid number 616107707937, the premise shall, owned by David G. Django, is dangerous, unsafe, and dilapidated, and an imminent threat to the general public, and whereas the town board adopted findings regarding the building and directed the issuance of an order and notice requiring the demolition of the building and the setting of a public hearing regarding the order and notice, and whereas it was necessary to delay the scheduling of a public hearing so the ownership of the building could be confirmed, which work has been completed. Now therefore be resolved that the public hearing on the order and notice as proposed by the findings, including the demolition and removal of the building and the garbage and debris on the premise and the recovery levy and collection of town expenses to do so as an ad valorem levy, be noticed and held before the town board on the 19th day of March 2014 at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 over Rocker Road, Poughkeepsie, New York. Whereas the Town of Poughkeepsie has in the order and notice preserved its right to proceed more rapidly with the remediation of the site if it is required pursuant to Town Code 7112 and so moved.
Second.
Did we, all right. We have a motion and a second.
All I got.
Any
That's all I got.
discussion? All those, and that was a strange way to end your sentence.
Yeah, it was a
Anyway,
very strange
all those in
way.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
You seconded that? I kind of got lost.
Who
I
seconded?
did. I did.
Okay, Joe. Be resolved that the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby waive the bids for mowing of town parks and facilities, mowing at town buildings, and maintenance of the Route 9 and Route 55 medians as follows. Mowing of town parks and facilities to Franklin Roush at a price of $63,520 per year for the years 2014, 2015. Mowing at town buildings to Franklin Roush at the bid price of $5,200 per year for the years 2014 and 2015. Maintenance of Route 9 and Route 55 medians to Gentile Construction Corp. At the bid price of $13,759 per year for the years 2014 and 2015. And be it further resolved that the supervisors are authorized to execute contract agreements with the above noted companies upon receipt of insurance certificates and security bonds. So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
These numbers have gone down consistently.
They've gone down, yeah, we came to the end of a 3-year bid, or a 3-year contract in 13. I think this is the 5th time we've bid these, particularly our parks out, and the prices dropped every year. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, except for the medium ones, that's gone up $2,000. That was only 11,000 something last time.
Paying like $300,000 or $400,000 in-house to do this previously.
Each year we think we've hit the bottom. Each time we bid it out, anyway, we bring the contractor in as we did this year. We explain to them, look, it's a very visible job. It needs to be done right. The whole 9 yards, check the references. They say the right things. We give them opportunity to, pull out if they don't think they can handle the work. I guess it's just that the economy's tough and.
Should try to get a 4 or 5 or 10-year deal on these things. But it's amazing because we were paying $300,000 or $400,000, I think, in-house.
4 years ago, we were paying $144 to the contractor, and this for the next 2 years will be at $63.5. So you know.
But still with the median ones, the rec department is looking into replacing with a ground cover in there that'll choke out the weeds and doesn't need to be mowed or anything. So we can hopefully completely eliminate this, because that one did go up.
Went up a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, it went up
That was
a bit.
a lot of work.
Ground cover catches all the junk,
Yeah, it looks like,
Yeah,
so then somebody has to go pick it up,
yeah, it collects the garbage, you're right.
right?
You know what really doesn't collect garbage or maintenance is cement.
Yeah. The nice thing that the building maintenance and the parks maintenance, as opposed to the last 3 years, this guy's a local guy. The medians, it is an out-of-town company, but they were the low bidder, so at least 2 out of the 3 is someone local this time around. But it was competitively bid, and, you know, this is where it fell, so.
Yeah, good job.
All those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does authorize a provisional appointment of Keith Ballard to the position of Water Superintendent with the annual salary of $92,000, which promotion is a provisional appointment pending results of the civil service examination effective March 1st, 2014. Be it further resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie is hereby authorize the appointment of Edward Losey to the position of Water Maintenance Supervisor at the salary of $33.65 per hour, which promotion is a permanent appointment contingent upon Mr. Ballard's successful results of the civil service examination effective March 1st, 2014. Be it further resolved that the above promotions are both subject to a probationary period of not less than 8 but more than 26 weeks per civil service law. So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say that Keith has done a phenomenal job since taking over for camo pollution. Has always been available and accessible to myself and the other board members, knows our system backwards and forward, inside and out. I have complete faith and confidence in the job he's been doing. I think we're lucky to have him. And I think this makes complete sense. So.
And what this will do is put, you know, a true second man in command. So should Keith not be able to get to an emergency or be on vacation, we have someone who has the authority to be in command of the department. And
we do have a good group that works together.
well, we got a great group.
Department, sewer department, highway department, police
Just make for a
department.
better managed department.
And all this hinges on Keith's, not to put any pressure on you, but successful completion of your exam.
I can see you're studying away back there right now, right?
No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby modify the 2014 budget pursuant to the attached budgetary transfer request form submitted by the Comptroller to allow for sewer capital projects as follows. From S1990-0409 sewer contingency miscellaneous $137,000 to S8120-0481 sewer collection contracted services $37,000 and S8120-0481 sewer collection contract services $100,000. So moved.
Second?
A motion and a second. Any discussion? This is to basically create budget lines and monies for the projects that we've approved, or, you know, at least the work that's been started on our sewer projects. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby modify the 2014 budget pursuant to the attached budgetary transfer request form submitted by the Comptroller to allow restructuring of the Water Department as follows: from F8320-0440, water purchase of $14,437, to F8310-0101, regular pay $1,115, F8310-0811, Social Security $86, F8320-0101, regular pay of $8,740, F8320-0811, Social Security $669, F8340-0101, regular pay $3,555, and F8340-0811, Social Security $272. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the settlement of the tax review proceedings instituted by C&B Realty Poughkeepsie LLC for the tax assessment roll of 2012 through 2013 as shown on the attached order and stipulation of settlement. And be it further resolved, the Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie is hereby authorized Todd N. Tancredi, Supervisor, Kyle Burnett, Esquire of Vanderwater and Vanderwater LLP, and Kathleen Tabor, Town Assessor, to sign such papers as are necessary to effectuate said settlement, and as a result of said settlement, the town shall pay no refund. So moved.
Second?
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yeah, what property is this? Do we know?
Do you know, Jim? I don't know off the top of my head. C plus B Realty, Poughkeepsie. I don't know where it is.
Okay. It's not going down that much, so that's fine. All right.
There's no refund, which is nice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Be resolved, the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the settlement of the tax review proceedings instituted by Govinda S. Gill, trustee for tax assessment rolls of 2012 through 2013, as shown on the attached stipulation of settlement and order, and be it further resolved, the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize Todd N. Tancredi, Supervisor Kyle Barnett, Esquire of Vanderwater and Vanderwater LLP, and Kathleen Tabor, Town Assessor, to sign such papers as are necessary to effectuate said settlement. So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? The refund on this one is $3,300, the town's portion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor to sign all documents necessary and proper to accept a competitive grant award in the amount of $99,985 from New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security State Homeland Security Grant Program, which grant is provided to the Town of Poughkeepsie Police Department to improve and develop tactical team capabilities through equipment, training, exercise, and planning projects that support counterterrorism missions in the Town of Poughkeepsie jurisdiction. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yes, Chief. I see in the paper the armed robberies that have gone on, and that the individuals from our department have made several arrests with respect to this series of armed robberies. And then I see the one on the arrest of the individual on Main Street with a semi-automatic assault rifle, fully loaded and capable of killing our two officers. I would like to express my gratitude and appreciation to the members of your department involved in that arrest. It's exemplary police work.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Thank you very much.
Proactive police work. I mean, they basically, you mind if I give a few details? They basically were patrolling an overtime detail in Arlington as a result of the robberies, saw a gentleman who, for, I guess, lack of better description, they thought, had some peculiar movements, questioned him, and ended up finding I don't know, what would it be, a semi-automatic weapon strapped to his shoulder. So absolutely, completely proactive police work. They could have just driven on and not bothered getting out of the car.
My house.
So I agree with Bill 100%.
It's been a series of arrests, and I know they work really hard, and I know they're up against the wall for time. So please make sure they understand that it's recognized and really appreciated.
We appreciate what they do every day, not to even overshadow that, but that's just why we count on you guys.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Whereas the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie has heretofore received an application from Joan Elmendorf on behalf of the Poughkeepsie Babe Ruth Baseball to hold its opening day parade on April 5th, 2014 at 11 a.m., which parade route is outlined on the attached documentation. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby approve the applications for said opening day parade as submitted pending receipt of a certificate of liability insurance naming the Town of Poughkeepsie as an additional insured. So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
I just hope the snow melts in time for that.
Yeah, no kidding.
You were in Hawaii for 2 weeks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Whereas the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie has heretofore received an application from Vassar College to include a fireworks display at its Vassar College Reunion Weekend event to be held on Friday, June 13, 2014, with a rain date of Saturday, June 14, 2014. Whereas the applicant has notified the Arlington Fire Department, and whereas a certificate of liability insurance has been filed with the town clerk, named the Town of Poughkeepsie as an additional insured. Now therefore be resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby approve the application as submitted for a fireworks display to be held on Friday, June 13, 2014, with a rain date of Saturday, June 14, 2014, at 9 p.m. on Vassar College property, Raymond Avenue, Poughkeepsie, New York. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does accept, with regret, the resignation of Sophia Hesch, effective immediately from the Historic Preservation Commission. So moved.
Second.
Motion is second, any discussion?
Yeah, just like to thank Sophia for her time. She'd been on it once before and came back, and she was very good, very well educated, and she's done a lot. And Ann could probably say, sorry to see her go, because she was one of the good ones.
Yeah, she's also an architect, and she was very helpful. And currently, there is only one opening on the Historic Preservation Commission, and we don't have anybody from the 4th Ward or the 5th Ward currently on the commission.
Okay.
It's a $200,000. No, that's right, that's voluntarily.
This one's voluntarily. This one doesn't come with a stipend.
I saw half the people wait, their eyes went up there, even Jim was looking, weren't you?
We're motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
18 is a notification, 19 notification, 20 notification, 21 is be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept the minutes for the following 2014 Town Board meetings to wit, February 12 Committee of the Whole and Special Town Board meeting, February 19th regular Town Board meeting, so moved.
Second.
And second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Say there's something else.
The special consent, right?
Yeah, we have special consent.
I don't get up on the page.
Thank you.
Don't we have to do?
22? No?
22.
Yeah.
Special consent.
Be resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie hereby grant special consent to the following items to wit, SC1, notification. And be a notification to follow notice of claim for town clerk to legal, McKinney versus Town, and be it further resolved that upon the objection of any member of the town board, an item may be removed from the list and voted on separately. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second.
What's going on?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? C1 is notification, refer to legal. That brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd like to make a motion to accept questions or comments from the audience on town issues.
Second.
All those in favor? Would anybody like to address the board? Doreen?
Yes, regarding the sign amendments code, I'm glad you did not increase it, because that's how you end up with a sign looking like Bed Bath & Beyond, that you could see 2 counties away. And there's always people who don't obey the law anyway, like there's, I know the zoning administrator, there's currently a sign in the Arlington Town Center. It's a television in the window that's clearly not allowed under the law, and it's changing, and, it's been up there for months. She's issued a order to remedy, then tickets, and so they're going to appeal it. So, I really think that that you made the right decision there. As far as the home occupations, I have to agree with the supervisor. I think, when you move into a neighborhood and, it's residential and, you really don't expect to have a business next door to you. And I think my main concern would be with, not necessarily with the number of employees, but with parking and where cars are going to be located. And because then you also don't want to end up with something like, Mike, in your neighborhood where people then pave over part of their front lawn to make parking. So we don't want to we don't want to see that happen either.
Yeah.
And then my other question is I don't remember the timing. How did this new energy tax affect the town budget? Because did you have enough time to plan like extra costs for electric or gas or anything?
It's only going to cost us like $75 a year, they said. Right?
All right, well, but realistically.
Mr. Wadowitz? Did you
It'll all
hear that-
be
did you hear
okay.
that question? Would you please pay, no, just,
Yeah,
could
yeah,
you repeat it, Doreen?
Come on, Jim, what are we paying for? Come on.
Figured it out with
Should I
what-
repeat
Jim,
the
the
question?
question basically is with the new utility tax that was approved by the county legislature, and I don't recall, but I believe we did, but did we account for that in the town budget?
We did not. We took the
Okay.
position that, we took a conservative approach. We got the information kind of late, but it's supposed to kick in March 1st.
Yeah, that's true. We approved our budget, what?
Right, that's why I wasn't
So
sure that
we
you
didn't.
would
And
have, so
They
what do you?
assured us it would
is
only
there-
be $75.
Aren't we exempt from sales tax?
No, we're not.
It's not sales tax.
It's for the residents bill that'll be.
It hits every.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so there's no cost to the,
Is there a
extra
cost to the town?
for this?
Jim?
There's,
The utility tax, isn't there?
Sure, like
I thought you were talking about the
I'm
additional.
talking about the utility tax that the county legislature passed in,
goes
for the
into effect March
2014
1st.
budget.
Like on your electric, your fuel.
Right, I thought you were talking to the additional sales tax that'll be generated through the
No, no,
county.
no,
We have
no.
not
Are
budgeted for that.
Are we gonna
I'm
be,
sorry, I
are we gonna be
misunderstood you.
charged
Wasn't paying attention.
for the utility tax? We are gonna have to pay that, right? The utility tax?
tax exempt.
I'm not sure. There's certain taxes we are exempt from.
We'll have to, we'll look
Why do I
at,
want to? Why do I want to say that there was no exemption for commercial users previously, so that it's only hitting residential?
I thought it was in addition to the
Is
sales.
that?
I will double
Could that
check,
be-
but we
could that
did
be
not put that in our
possible?
budget. We had no way of knowing
we
it at the
did.
time.
We
Is it
did
possible that there was
budget.
no exemption for commercial? The exemption that was only in place for residential.
Commercial already pays, Stefan.
Commercial already pays.
Commercial already pays.
Right. So that's
Oh.
We may be tax exempt.
we're either
So-
tax exempt or we're already paying it. Whereas
Okay.
commercial properties out there basically don't.
So it was
hit
just
with the-
applied to residential.
So you don't.
Commercial properties have already been paying it.
Shouldn't be an
Okay,
increase
so the
on
town
our end.
doesn't expect any
Right.
consequences
That's a
from
new
that.
tax burden just on us.
Right, and then there
residential
would be an
property
offset,
taxpayers.
and there would be an offset to the revenue, which we have not budgeted. There's supposed to be
Right.
additional revenue that I know
But the town would be getting that, not just the county?
goes
We'd
to
be
the county,
getting
then the
piece.
county allocates us a portion.
But it sounds like, based on the discussion, there's no new utility tax to commercial. It only was applied to residential.
Because we can afford it most.
Okay. All right, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Anybody
just want
else?
to restate that I think that tax is ridiculous.
Anybody else?
Absolutely.
All right, make a motion to resume the rule.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town Poughkeepsie is hereby adjourned to executive session considering the following matters to wit. 1, litigation to discuss litigation strategy of the case known as Farrar and McKinney. 2, confidential communications between attorney and his client, the town board, based on attorney-client privilege. And be it further resolved, there be no action appropriating money. So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Town board adjourns to executive session at 8:28
Lost my
PM.
notes.
Somebody